people are scared to say cult, but I'm like, it's on the cover of the book. It's okay.
Okay. So was that cult first or the TV cult?
The religious cult group was first. The belief was once you're saved, once you make that confession, as it were, then you are forever saved. The second tier of that is that's what's said in words, and the action underneath it is you still have to prove it, work hard, don't lose it, make sure that you're not going to do anything to jeopardize your position. You're told that you're loved unconditionally, but clearly the message is you better perform. You got to perform, and you're not just performing on a stage. You got to, every moment of your life, God is watching you, and you better be ready and available.
Or else. Welcome to this episode of Rooted Recovery Stories. I'm Patrick Custer, your host, and so very excited. This day has come to be here and have this conversation with my new friend, Bethany Joy Lenz.
Hi.
Hi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Me too. On this dreary, rainy, gray day in Nashville, Tennessee.
It's my favorite. I love rainy weather.
Okay, so interesting that you say that. I find it fascinating to know what an individual's type of ideal day is, weather-wise. So is that your favorite?
I mean, I guess it depends on the mood and what's going on in my life. I find one of the reasons why living in LA was really hard for me was because it was sunny all the time. And when it's sunny out, I feel pressure to get things done. I need to accomplish things. I need to be out of the house. I should be taking advantage of the weather. And whether it's even going for a hike or I just feel this sense of guilt that I'm not accomplishing enough. Mm-hmm. And I usually feel that if it's just nonstop sunny and I never get a break. But when the weather is cozy or overcast or thunderstorms, I feel like I've got permission to rest. Like there's some sort of cosmic permission to just take a break.
So I get that. I've never really thought about that from a rain perspective, weather perspective. Yeah. Where I relate to that is, and my producer and I both are so on the same page. We talk about it all the time when we get stuck on a plane, especially the LA flight from here. We're we either have an opportunity to, it's one of two extremes. We either have an opportunity to get work done that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do, or it's a forced opportunity to sit and be still with ourselves.
Right.
And the choice is ours.
I know. I feel that pressure on planes too.
Oh gosh. Adulting. So, but okay. So along that theme, I love that you open it up that way, because work ethic has been something that has clearly been at your core from a young age.
Yeah.
You started acting, how old?
7. Wow. Yeah. 7 I was a munchkin in a local production of The Wizard of Oz.
I love it.
I know.
The Wizard of Oz, the moment right now, The Wizard of Oz is everything.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Did you see it yet?
Of course.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
Were you there opening weekend?
The day.
Did you paint your nails green?
You know what? I didn't even think, I actually didn't realize that everybody was doing all that.
You didn't?
No.
Come on. You thought opening weekend in Wicked, people aren't going to be in line in costume?
I don't know what I was thinking, honestly. Okay. So side note real quick, just to give you a little bit of info about me. I grew up super conservative Christian, homeschooled, sheltered.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
I know a general sense of your background, but
okay.
I didn't know that. I didn't know it was very, very sheltered. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so I actually didn't see The Wizard of Oz until my partner and I watched it at a few days after we went to go see Wicked. So
really?
Yeah.
Why didn't your parents ever show you The Wizard of Oz?
Well, that was
a witch?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We didn't watch magic. We didn't watch things with talking animals.
Yeah.
We didn't watch things with anything that wasn't how God created it to be.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's rough, man. I get it.
Yeah.
I had family members that cousins and family members that weren't allowed to watch Cinderella and things because there was magic. Yeah. It was intimidating for people sometimes.
It is. I'm catching up on some things.
I'll send you a list.
Yeah, thanks. I love that. I really do, because it's just, a moment back in time. And sitting there watching, my partner is a Venezuelan refugee, and he is catching up on. He loves American culture and catching up as well. So we were both experiencing this for the first time, and the whole like importance of all that movie was.
Did you enjoy it? Like, does it hold up for you? Seeing it for the first time at this age?
Yes, because we went into it knowing the history of like all that it had, expecting it to be a movie from like, what was it, 1939?
Oh, maybe it was. I don't know.
I think it was the late 30s.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense.
So it was very like, I don't know, it felt like peering into a different world. So. Yeah. Speaking of peering into a different world.
Nice segue.
Thank you. So what led you into, you're doing acting in plays and stuff in your hometown, but you're moving into film. What got you there? I
mean, that took a little while. I really was a musical theater kid. For me, it was all three at once, the acting, singing, the dancing, using your whole body. Full force. It was as I was an only child. I also grew up in a conservative home, although it wasn't quite as conservative as your experience, it sounds like. But it didn't feel like there was a lot of play in my life as a kid.
When you say play, do you mean give and take on the option to do this or that, or play literally as kids would play?
Like playing, okay. Like playhouse, run around the yard, wrestle with your siblings, with your friends. It was both of my parents are just my dad's great at play, but he does play for work, so he does like group therapy, like outward bound kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's not like the spontaneous play. I think they both probably grew up in more confined environments. Yeah. And so anyway, being in a play and doing theater felt like the one space that I could really explore. Oh my gosh, I can use my body and I can do somersaults and I can do tap dancing and I can be singing and scream and be really loud. And so it became a skill. It became more than just spontaneous. It became a skill because I really wanted to continue doing that for the rest of my life. And so I continued in theater for many years until I was 12 or 13, and then moved to New Jersey from Texas. And we were very close to New York City.
What part of Texas?
In Dallas.
Oh, okay. I was born in Dallas too.
Oh, what part?
Plano.
Okay. Yeah, we were in HEB.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And when we were living close to the city, while I was also auditioning for Broadway and really pursuing musical theater, there were plenty of other opportunities for film and pilots and things that were, just another branch of the entertainment industry. And of course I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? I want to try it all. So that's when I started really doing movies and TV. That's Except awesome. I did have a foray into a Christian movie when I was like 11, I think.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. I'm surprised you never watched Salty the Singing Songbook.
Okay. Who said I never watched Salty the Singing Songbook? Wait.
No, yeah. I'm sorry. I should have asked
Climbing
first.
Up that.
Oh, no, you know the theme song?
Yes. I
never saw the show, but
what?
I didn't see the show. So Salty, for the friends out there who don't know what it is, it's a giant blue, I think, singing songbook akin to Barney, but Christian. And so it's a psalm songbook, I think. So
it's, yes, and it's not spelled salty as all you kids out there spell it today in sarcasm. It's P-S-A-L-T.
Yeah, like the Psalms. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Salty the Singing Songbook. And so my mom worked for a Christian music label, and she was in personnel and ran some department. I don't remember exactly what, but anyway, they were on the hunt for an actress for their Salty movie, and I won the role.
So Carla and Dwight Custer, my parents, my mom keeps everything, and you best believe that she has all of the Salty VHS
Oh,
tapes.
yeah, it's on VHS.
So I'm going to be over...
That's going to be fun for Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Salvation Celebration.
Salvation Celebration.
Yes. Get aboard the gospel train.
I think I can hear it coming right now. the train. I was playing it too. Okay. So, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So anyway, I did one thing in film.
Okay.
So it was kind of fun, but it was, it's like a low budget. They were trying to Christian VHS movie. And then, that was my first time on a set. And then I did a lot more of it and got into guiding light when I was 17, and then kind of just stayed in the television lane mostly.
Yeah.
From there.
How old were you when you started One Tree Hill?
When I started One Tree Hill, I was 21. Yeah, I was 21.
But you were playing what? A fresh
16.
16.
Yeah. 16.
Okay.
Yeah, James Lafferty was the only one who was actually 17 years old when he started.
Interesting. I mean, which is normal. I mean, heck, I look at like 28-year-olds now and I'm like, are you still in middle school?
Yeah,
You know?
I
know. It feels so different when we're that age, like the age range.
Yeah.
In reality, it's not that. It's not that different.
Yeah, I still feel like I'm 30. I'm not.
Me too. I hope I always feel that way.
I think we do. I mean, I think that's sort of one of the great, so I'm trying to get myself up. I think that's one of the great secrets of getting old that you don't realize when you're young, is that everybody feels so much younger than the stereotype of their age is portraying, I guess,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I think that we have the opportunity to settle into the ageism feeling, right? Like what people, I hope, I don't know. I hope that
It's just a number.
Yes, this is true. So, everybody talks about this because it's such a huge chunk of your life.
Yeah.
One Tree Hill, which came, and I apologize because I don't know, which came first, you getting into this organization?
Yeah.
Is it, because I know.
Yeah, it's funny. Some people are scared to say cult, but I'm like, it's on the cover of the book. It's okay.
Okay, so we'll say cult. And so was the cult, that cult first or the TV cult?
So the cult, the religious cult group was first. So I don't know that. What's interesting is that I don't think it was what we would call a cult when it started. It wasn't a high demand group when it started. And then it really just morphed into that as time went on. After probably about a year and a half, it started getting very high demand and controlling and manipulative and all those things. But when it started, but I started there. I established this group of friends in Los Angeles. It was all based around a home Bible study. And then I got One Tree Hill and started splitting my time 9 months out of the year in North Carolina, and then the rest of my time in Idaho, which I write about in the book. So how many people were involved at the beginning? And just one Bible study? It was just a Bible study. It was, I guess, about 20 people, and then it kind of whittled down to about 12. And then when everybody started moving up from LA to Idaho, there were already some people there, and there was this like merging of the two groups.
So a separate group had.
It wasn't really separate. It was like so. I'll give a little lay of the land for anyone who's just doesn't know exactly what we're talking about. So, okay, I wrote a book. It's called Dinner for Vampires. It's about my experience being involved in this high demand religious group while I was also an actress on One Tree Hill. And so what happened, the Reader's Digest version, is that I'd started out in this small home group Christian Bible study. It seemed very similar to a lot of things that I had been visited and been to throughout my life in different churches. And there was a pastor from another state who was invited to come speak at our group in LA. And he also at the same time was establishing a smaller group of people, like a Bible study in Idaho where he was based. And so when he came down to speak, he, I think, saw a lot of young professionals, a lot of young Hollywood professionals in LA, and knew how to manipulate and kind of got the idea of whatever he was going to do to merge his two groups. So eventually all of us moved up to Idaho, but it took a while. It wasn't just like, hey, I'm my name is Les, and I would like for you to come live up in Idaho with me in my compound.
Yeah.
Because we all would have been like, you're crazy.
Well, you've been very like outspoken about I'm sure you hear this all the time, but like the frog in the boiling pot. But for anybody who doesn't know the metaphor, a frog, you can place a frog in a boiling pot of water and it's going to jump right out. But if you place it in a pot of lukewarm water and then slowly turn the heat up, it's going to die because it won't know that
it doesn't jump out.
It doesn't jump out.
Even though it has the total ability to. Like, it could just jump right out, but it won't.
So I'm interested to know, because you said it takes a long time to coerce someone in a meaningful way.
Mm-hmm.
Along the sentiment of what we just said. But I'm interested to know, I was like tossing around, what is it about that kept like picking at my brain?
Yeah.
Because there's a reason why, clearly, a reason why everything you've chosen to share with the world about your experience. But that hit me a specific type of way, and I'm curious what gave you the need to say that specifically about the length of time, explaining to people.
I think it's important to recognize that it's important for people to recognize in their own experiences that you're not dumb, you're not necessarily naive or foolish. Coercion is there's a target on you when someone's trying to coerce you, and it's an intentional manipulation. So I guess the point really would be that you shouldn't feel shame around it, because it's not really a decision that you made. It's not a choice that you made. Mm-hmm. This is something I've learned through having some wonderful conversations with Dr. Ramani Durvasula. I don't know if you know her, but
we had the honor of sitting in a talk. She was with Dr. Gabor Mate in Los Angeles recently. Anyway.
So talking with Dr. Ramani has been so helpful, because it really helped me recognize how coercion works, and that it's not a choice if you don't have multiple viable options. Mm-hmm. And so I felt like when I started to recognize that, I wanted other people to recognize it too, that there's no shame in it, because it's not like even if you do make bad decisions, and there's still a way to deal with shame, but this situation isn't necessarily one of them.
You're hitting on something that is like our passion, mission, and vision of this show is to give people hope and squash the propulsion of shame and guilt driving people to despair and just continue to make choices that out of fear and harm themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious though, for you, did you feel like your intelligence was needing to be defended because of getting
when I got out?
Yeah, because obviously this isn't that you weren't thinking about like, oh, it's taking a long time for me to be coerced. It's like it's towards the end when you're, and so like at that point, were you feeling like you needed to defend your intelligence behind?
For sure. Oh yeah, absolutely. It was definitely a matter of pride and feeling like what will it mean about me if I thought that I was really smart and then it turns out I'm not. I'm just this dumb, naive girl that can just get tricked into anything by anyone. And not just a matter of pride, but also identity. Like, how could I trust myself if I'm this susceptible to someone else's ideas about me? And that's also where my my faith had to come in and get reconstructed and rewired, because for me, realizing that I'm not relying just on me. There's in my faith, there's a sense of camaraderie and working with the God of my understanding in tandem as this like spirit, this thing that's with me all the time, helping me, and I'm gonna get it wrong, and it's okay to get it wrong. And I think in my previous life, when I was involved with this group and growing up in a really religious environment, the message that I was being told in words was, all your sins are forgiven, and you can make mistakes, and here's all the things that you need to do in order to live life right. So it's like you're totally okay to make mistakes, but definitely don't make mistakes.
So let me ask you, was there a difference between salvation, how you were raised, and salvation in the cult? Like how did you get salvation? And was it once saved, always saved?
Okay, there's probably a two-tiered answer. On a very literal level, the belief was, yes, once you're saved, once you make that confession, as it were, then you are forever saved. But the second tier of that is, that's what's said in words, and the action underneath it is, but you still have to prove it, work hard, don't lose it, make sure that you're not going to do anything to jeopardize your position. Or else. It was really, but I didn't realize it was so young. Like, it was in my 20s. Well, I guess I'm trying to put myself back in my brain when I was that age. The or else would have been, you're going to screw up your life. Like, God will always forgive you, and you'll always go to heaven. That's the phrasing of everything. But you might totally screw up your life. God might be trying to use you, and then he won't be able to, because you're going to get in the way, and then you'll be unhappy, and then you'll be messing up other people's lives, and then other people won't get saved because you won't know how to communicate God's love to them. And so it's all on you. Like, it's really up to you to save everybody else and make sure that you're a vessel for God. Like God's not big enough.
The weight of humanity is on your little shoulders.
Yeah.
And their eternal.
Right. Yep. Their eternal life is on your shoulders. It's up to you to be able to save them and communicate. So it was very strange to be able to live in a place where, and I'm going to try and tie it back to your original question. Sorry, but it was hard growing up living in that place where you're told that you're loved unconditionally, but clearly the message is, you better perform. You got to perform, and you're not just performing on a stage. You got to, every moment of your life, God is watching you, and you better be ready and available. There's nothing freeing about that. There's nothing that feels like eternal, unconditional love about that whatsoever.
Well, and is it really a relationship with God?
Well, not at all.
Because it's based out of fear.
Absolutely. There's no relationship involved. And so yeah, tying it back to what you were originally asking, this and how I was saying it ties into my faith now, because now things have morphed for me, as I say, reconstructed into a much better understanding, what I think is a much better understanding. There's still a lot of mystery, but that I'm not responsible for someone else. Like, God is God. If God is God, whatever that means, that being is capable of communicating to me, to you, to everyone else in a way that they can hear and understand. And so when I feel, when I experience love and forgiveness and a release of shame and all of those things, that's like, when you've got I'm sure you with your partner, when there's moments where you have to apologize for something and then he forgives you, and it's like, doesn't it draw you closer? And it just makes you love him more. And
oh my gosh.
Want to be closer, and you're like, oh, what can I do for you? So that's where I want to live out of in my relationship with God, not out of a fear of like, I'm not performing right. I'm not doing things right. I'm not going to save people. But it took a long time to get there, because that's not at all the experience of faith that I was brought up in.
I would compare it to like if you think about it, for those who weren't raised in because I was raised exactly how you described. And if you weren't raised in a religious household, I would say that this is easily I'm going to draw a parallel to what your career has been in acting. So let's just say you go and you have a romance that lasts all 9 seasons on or however many seasons, specific seasons on a show. But it's all performative, but everybody knows it and everybody loves you for it. And, that's what you're known for. But like
you're on
it ain't a relationship. You're not getting the benefits of what a relationship should be, because that's not what it is. Yeah,
I see what you're saying. Yes,
so if you're comparing that to a relationship with a higher power, if all it is performative, as in acting a role on television, like you're literally just, when you said performative, that like I got chills down my spine, because I'm just feeling and picturing. I'm like, that's exactly what it is. You're on stage all the time, and you have to hit the mark, but it's not real.
It's not real.
You'll never reap or receive the benefits, or really be able to be used, I think, like the way that that's the
whole intention is meant to be. There's just so much fear involved, and so much I felt afraid to live my own life, which is why I was susceptible to being manipulated by someone who wanted control. And that's the baseline of it. And that's for people who get involved in abusive relationships with a romantic partner, or who can't leave a toxic work environment, or who are involved in an abusive narcissistic family dynamic and just are codependent and refuse to be able to step out of that and assert their own lives, because there's some part that's like, I seek attachment. I want to, which is normal human. I want to connect with people, and I'm being taken advantage of in that place. And especially when you're that young, but as it progressed, I also found that it was an easy way for me to not have to make mistakes and live my own life, because if I followed all of the rules that were being presented for me to follow, then it's really not on me. Like it's if I make a mistake, but
you're not really, if you're following everything they're saying, you're not having to make all the scary choices that life prescribes.
That's it. I won't fall on my face. There's no chance that I'll fall on my face and look stupid and feel stupid and hurt myself and hurt other people, because I'm following all the rules, which is why it was such a rude awakening when I left, to find out like, oh, talk about falling on your face. Like, that was the biggest fall ever.
Side note, but that fall, when talking about making a mistake and apologizing and bringing you closer together, in the grand scheme of things, when all is said and done with your life, to me, and I look at this and I look at your story, and I'm like, but that fall was you owning up to everything and saying like, I forgive me. Yeah. I'm going to love me. I'm going to have a real relationship with myself now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
it's like if I had been brought up in an environment where everything was laid out for me. I did everything everybody told me to do. I dressed perfectly. I showed up everywhere. I knew all the right things to say. And I found myself all of a sudden in the middle of my life going, I don't even know who I am. And everything around me is a set. It's all paper mache. And how do I just go back to the beginning? I'm going to start out in my car. I'll live in my car. I'm going to show up every day for myself, for the people I know. I'm going to peel off the costume, take off the makeup, and just start from scratch and figure out who I am. How do I like my eggs? What music do I listen to? How do I want to communicate with people? How do I like to be communicated with? I mean, it was back to bare bones of reconstructing, like, who am I?
Did you ever go through that process as a young person before this point? Identifying what you liked and who you were.
In some ways, there were. I mean, I knew I loved theater. Again, I don't know if that was how much of it's nature and nurture, how much of it was that I didn't have an outlet, and it was the right place, right time provided an outlet for me. But I was good at it. Not everybody is.
Yeah.
There's plenty of things out there I'm not good at. So I don't know. I'm sure I did in some way. Did you? You had to have in some
So where
ways,
I would
right?
where I would really relate to that is I had a huge growth moment last year. Some life instances pushed me to a place where I like forged through the fire and realized that I had not been able to identify how I've worked in behavioral health for 13, almost 14 years. I mean, that doesn't mean I'm
health? What did you say?
Behavioral health.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And so surrounded by therapy, treatment program. I mean, like we do so much at my corporation that I work for, and I love it. I love therapy. I've been in therapy,
Yeah.
But at any given moment, if you had just been in a, like, nobody else around and said, Patrick, what are you feeling in this moment? Whether it was just you and me or a group of people, my answer would have been what I thought you wanted me to say, or what would make you feel most comfortable, or what.
Really?
Yes. And I didn't know that was the case.
Did you know that? Okay, so you didn't know that you were saying what the other person wanted to hear.
No.
It's not like you were doing that.
It was the most press. So, and also if it was, let's just say it was you and me, and there's someone else who's got, like, so let's just say a high maintenance individual with screaming emotions that are glaring and, whatever, whatever it feels like their need is right now, my emotion that I'm going to express will align with that. Yeah. It comes from the household that I grew up in. So, and I learned that
there's something like really beautifully empathetic about that, but it's hard to know where the line is. Like,
well, it's a great thing to be able to use when you know that you have that.
Yeah, because it can be helpful for people.
But however, I didn't know. Yeah,
if you're sacrificing yourself.
In lack of awareness, right? Yeah. So I had no idea, and I didn't even know how to navigate to the place of what am I actually really feeling? So as you were talking about how, like, not a lot of play as a kid, but then, all of a sudden the theater came along and you had this opportunity and you have this outlet and you're able to scream and you're describing all these things. And I'm like, this is where you were doing, expressing all of the emotions and the things that, like, this was your outlet. This was where you were getting all of those specific.
But what was still in the same way that following someone else's rules about my life and my faith kept me from, subconsciously, it made me feel like I wasn't going to, at risk of making a mistake or making a fool out of myself. Following a script with all of my emotions, it makes it safe. So I can go to work and I can have a big blowout fight with my husband, and it feels good to be able to express myself and slam things around and just, do all the things. But there's no actual emotional risk. We just clock out and go home. There's no stakes.
So that's where I was curious about, you got it out through that outlet as a youngster, but when you really think about it and, falling on your face for that first time and open, like, that first time of vulnerability, and you're all of a sudden faced with, like, all of those, like, really going back to the simplicity that you just mentioned of what do I like?
I guess I didn't when I was a kid. I didn't have a lot of that.
So I feel like so many people aren't aware that they are having or have yet to have that experience as an adult for different reasons.
That's so true, because it was a wide awakening. When I hit a point, and I write about this in the book after I get out, and I sort of look at the aftermath of what just happened to me, and I'm like, how dare you? Like I did all the right things. I followed all the rules. I was the perfect little Christian girl. And this is how my life turns out. This isn't the deal. And I wholeheartedly shut the door on every rule that I had placed myself under or had been placed under and allowed myself to stay there or didn't know that I was there or whatever. All the rules, I just said bye. And I was like, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to follow my gut, my feelings, my heart, my instinct. And I made a lot of mistakes, but I also found out that I'm okay after making mistakes. And other people are okay when I make mistakes. And like, it's okay.
There's also, is there not some part of like, what is that word? Catharsis in the human experience of the process of making mistakes. I mean, like, hell, the majority of the lessons I've had to learn, and that might be pushing it, maybe probably all the lessons I've had to learn were through making hard mistakes, you know?
Yes.
But like, you don't get there when you're following the prescribed, like same for me, because it wasn't until like my whole different story. Like mine was not a cult, but it was I went from high control Christianity to alcoholism, you know? And so,
yes, a different kind of control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Oh man, that really is so funny because it's so true. We are made to take risks and run and fly and jump and create. And you can't, even on a fundamental level as an artist, you can't create if there's no risk. If you're not willing to make a fool out of yourself. It's acting 101. Like if you're not willing to pretend to be a tree in a room full of people and sway in the wind, get out of the class. Like you gotta be willing to just look like an idiot, because that's how new things are created. That's how ideas spark. That's how people feel like they're not alone when they look across the room and they're like, oh, you're making a fool out of yourself too? Me too. I mean, we're trying to figure it out together. That's part of the human experience.
Yes.
And it's such a shame to me that I don't know if it's modern Western. And when I say modern, I guess maybe the last 700 years, Christianity
right.
has turned into this restrictive, like, here's how you avoid making mistakes. Isn't that literally the whole point of Jesus?
Right. like we're fallible, therefore there's grace. And
like, okay, so now I can totally make mistakes because all of the imperfections are taken care of. But it's amazing to me how little I knew about that growing up in a Christian environment. That was not at all the message that I received. Oh.
This podcast is brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health. If you or a loved one are struggling with trauma, addiction, or mental health, we are ready to answer your questions and help you take that next step. Call our admissions center at 888-648-4098 or visit us online at www.promises.com. Our team is ready and waiting to answer the call for help.
For me, I definitely had days, and I don't think that I'm unique throughout my life and still do, where I feel so far from God, or it's difficult for me to conceive that there is a higher power up there that exists. Did you feel like you were allowed to have days of doubt or periods of doubt?
I do now. I didn't then.
What was the sentiment that if you had that doubt, what did that mean?
Something's wrong with me. I'm creating the distance. God is always here. If I feel far from God, it's my fault. I've done something to separate myself
What's the answer?
From God. Repentance. And in the environment of this is one of those things that's really tricky. My ADHD brain is going in six. Like I have six tabs open in my brain right now. But this is one of the, I think, a good example of how something healthy can be really twisted in the wrong environment.
Yes.
So again, like we were saying, with a loving partner, if they're there and showing up and they're fine, they're in a great mood, everything's fine, and you're just feeling funky and having a weird day and you're like being kind of short and curt and whatever, and like, I don't know how to feel close to you, whatever. Sometimes going to that person and being like, I've been feeling far and disconnected and I'm sorry. And I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what, maybe it's not me, maybe it is. I don't know, but I want to be close to you. That would probably fall under in Christianity, the repentance category, maybe in other religions too. I don't know. And I think there's something really healthy and beautiful about that. When it's in a control environment, for the group I was in, repentance meant, it was a very sort of ceremonial thing. It was very like, not even like, I'm not Catholic, and I've never been to confession, but I kind of like the idea of having a place that you just go to once a week where you know, like, okay, listen, I got to just say this stuff out loud and get it out of my body. So I'm not holding on to shame and whatever. Like, okay. But in an environment that's high control, there are other people that require this from you. And you don't have the agency to decide on your own when you're going to, I'm using the word repent. I hope it doesn't freak people out. I hope the context makes sense.
No,
but like when you're going to repent or come in humility, maybe is a better word, and just say like, hey, I'm feeling disconnected, or I was thinking negatively all week about you, and I don't know why I let that in, but I'm sorry. In a high control environment, there are other people who are requiring that from you. You don't have the agency to make that decision for yourself when you're going to come in that humility and do that. There's this sense of like, if you're feeling far away from God, especially in a group high control situation, your connection with God is a key piece to the whole group. So if you're feeling disconnected from God, you're actually withholding a piece of yourself and a piece of God from the group. And so now you have an ultra responsibility because you're otherwise you're interfering with the flow of God within the group. So you have to show up and do these like repentant meetings, and you got to cry, and it's a whole thing.
Now you talk about a lack of, or something being taken away. Like there's the healthy side of it. And then what you kind of described just now is in the high control group is a lack of agency.
Yeah.
So if there's a lack of agency there, then how are these people that are coercing you or forcing you into the process, the timing of doing the process for the benefit of the whole group? How are they?
You.
But for you, right?
For you.
Oh, yes.
We want what's best for you.
Yes.
Sorry.
The smile. Y'all, I wish you could see the smile. I think I just got chills. You did that smile.
That's the Pam smile.
Oh, God.
One of the characters in my book.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but how did they find out? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, what's telling them? Are they just like, hey, I sensed, or so-and-so told me, that they have seen you acting differently, or?
Yeah, I think that's it. You're just living day-to-day life. You when you have good friends, you can tell the difference when they're having a good day and a bad day, usually, right? If somebody's in your life and they're just feeling kind of distant or funky, it's like, are you okay? What's going on? In a healthy friendship, you'd be like, yeah, I'm just having a weird day. It's fine. In this context, it's, well, what's going on? Like, why are you feeling weird? And it's the pry and the pick and the poke, and like, let's get to the bottom of it, because we're here to be vessels for God. There's no room for you to have bad, funky days.
So would it be anybody in the group, or was it you have to take it to the leadership to talk? Like,
it depends on how large the transgression was. And also it kind of depended on the mood of the leadership. Like, there were times, I remember there was a couple who wanted to buy a car and switch apartments, and somebody else wanted to switch apartments. One couple wanted to buy a car, and they didn't go to the group leader or Pam to talk to them about it. They were just a young married couple, and they were like, no, we decided we want to move, whatever. And it was like a whole big thing. It's like, you're not asking for wisdom and counsel. Like, you're outside of God's structure of a multitude of counselors. You're just making all these decisions independently.
So you just saw my jaw drop.
Yeah.
But Can you tell me what was the difference between the control now that you're out and you know what's normal and what's not normal to be controlled with? So what you just described isn't normal.
Yeah.
What level of agency did you actually have, if any, to make choices, and what
Very
things
little.
were you told that you had to bring to them?
Very little. That's how coercion works, as we were saying before, that if the only other option is that either you participate in this group's structure of relationship or you just won't be a part of the group, then there's not much of a choice. It's like being in a marriage where there's one partner who's like, this is how we function in marriage and this is how I want you to behave. And if you don't behave that way, that's fine. We just won't be married anymore. It's like, it's not really a choice. So everything, it was slow. You know, at first it was, and I walk through this in the book too, where it starts out with, we don't want you to be alone. And that actually was the narrative for most of it was, you've been independent your whole life, Joy. You've kind of raised yourself in a lot of ways emotionally. You got out on your own when you just turned 18, living in New York City. And then you moved to all these different apartments. You moved to LA on your own. And you're just so independent and it's just not serving you anymore. And we want what's best for you. And we don't want you to feel alone. Stop doing life alone. Let us come alongside you. Which at a young age felt really lovely.
Did you feel alone at the time they were telling you stuff?
I did. Yeah, there was a huge part of me that I'd always. I guess what I didn't really understand was the nuance between we're always all alone. Mm-hmm. All of us are all alone, but we're not because we have each other. But like at the end of the day, nobody else is in my brain. Nobody else is in your brain and in your body.
Right.
So there are reckonings that we have to deal with on our own. But that doesn't mean that we're lonely and isolated.
Correct.
It just means that anyway, so it doesn't mean that we're lonely and isolated. So in this context, it was another unhealthy version of a concept that could have been explained to me in a much healthier way. But they were taking advantage of the fact that I was an only child and I felt lonely a lot and used it to explain it to me as though if I were to enter into this sort of covenant relationship where it's almost like a group marriage and we're all just in each other's business all the time with everything, then I won't feel alone anymore. Well, and so it became everything, to answer your question about like what kinds of things I had to bring to them and everything, any little thing that I wondered about.
You say it became kind of like a group marriage for you.
Yeah, for me, it was much closer.
You ended up marrying the leader's son, correct?
I did, yeah.
And that level of I insert all descriptive words.
Yes. So much control. I mean, financial control for sure. But every little thing, every thought, I mean, down to, I used to have to send my wardrobe photos from One Tree Hill, back to Idaho for approval. Like everything, who I was having lunch with.
Beforehand or?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've always been a little bit of a rebel. I've always been a lot of a rebel. In this situation, I think I was acting out as much as I could, but I felt guilty if I didn't really communicate what was going on all the time with them, with the leadership, because I had been sufficiently convinced that I would be acting in independence in a way that was unhealthy, that was detrimental to me.
Which again, the weight of the group and therefore the world and people being able to be saved all depends.
It's all tied up
on your accountability for who you're having coffee with and what you're wearing on One Tree Hill.
That's right. It's all tied together. It's like a little domino effect. Because if you have coffee with this person who we've been telling you, we don't really know if you can trust that person. Like, we need to be praying for you while you're having that coffee. Don't just walk into that coffee on your own. Like, make sure you've got spiritual support going into that, so you're protected in this sort of spiritual realm. And then you would let us know how the coffee goes so that we know how to be continuing to pray for you and pray for that person. And it's not just like, again, like, there are healthy versions of it.
Yes.
If I feel like I'm walking into a situation that I am a little unsteady about, I might call a friend and be like, hey, will you just like think of me right now or say a prayer for me or something?
Yeah. I think that the separation there is just absolutely agency. It's like, it's having a choice to say, will you do this for me? And then also the motive. Was the motive really, because maybe it was, that, again, a lot of the people probably had good intentions, but still under the group mindset of like, we have to do this, you're following along, but it's manipulation and control. Like, so there's the
yeah.
And gosh, we could go on and on about it. I think the one thing I want to ask you about that is, did that ever get to, because I'm thinking about what that would do to me. I would feel suffocated and end up having panic attacks, the level of anxiety provocation.
Yes, which is why it had to happen really, really, really slowly. It had to be teased out. It's not like I just walked into that and suddenly that was the relationship, and this is how I function now. It was very slow. It's the love bombing, of the narcissistic love bombing. It starts out where we don't want you to feel alone, and use us as a support. And there was never any pressure, and it was all very like, just call us if you need us. And enough of those phone calls, and then somebody feels like, I guess they've started to feel like they're, where's the window? I would imagine, in that psychopathic brain, I'm not a doctor, so I guess I can't diagnose, but that brain, the manipulative brain that's looking for the in after the love bombing, once I'm really comfortable, then it's, okay, now I'm comfortable enough to be able to say something to her. I'm mixing my first and third persons. Sorry.
It's okay.
That manipulative brain, after love bombing, looking for a window in, probably goes, okay, when is the right moment to now not just bring encouraging things to her, but maybe I could say something a little critical. Mm-hmm. And, it was received okay. So I'd be like, oh, actually, I appreciate that. I appreciate that you care about me enough to say something honest to me. That's hard.
It's under the guise of accountability and just like, I care, therefore yeah,
I'm willing to say the hard things in friendship, but like, I still love you. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, thank you. And then you do enough of those, then you start craving it. Like, nobody else in my life is being willing to step up and tell me hard things. Of course, I wasn't noticing all the people on One Tree Hill who were like, are you in a cult? I was like, that's a pretty hard thing to say to somebody.
Right.
But couldn't notice it then.
From the outside looking in, I think that it looks like you're being controlled and you're losing a lot. We've talked about a lot of the control.
Yeah.
But I'd like to know what you lost.
I lost time. I lost my agency, as we talked about. If I ever had it to begin with, maybe this was God's, and I think maybe it was God's great gift to me in, if you're going to live this way, let's do it all the way. Mm. Like, in some way, I can imagine God looking at me and going, I love you too much to let you live in this prolonged, for the rest of your life, state of sort of following the rules, trying to figure it out, but like, I just want to be a good Christian girl. And like, I don't know if you call that lukewarm. I don't know if you call it lulled into a state of just generally anesthetized through life. But I think that's sort of how I grew up. And I think maybe God was like, I love you too much to let you live that way. So I don't think you're going to see it if I just like reveal, like, I needed to commit 100%, 150, 200, 1,000% to that mindset that I believed was right. That I grew up in. If this is making sense. Sorry,
Yes.
it's a word salad. And then once I committed,
Because what you were doing before wasn't authentic.
It wasn't authentic either.
So you're saying like you had to get, basically this was your bottom. You wouldn't have gotten to an extreme bottom if you hadn't been propelled into the most extreme version. You would have been literally in this, I'll compare it because it's the closest thing I compare it to, like a high functioning alcoholic.
Yes.
You know,
exactly.
if you will. It's similar bondage, right? Like high functioning through life, and then never
it's like good enough. It's like life is kind of like it's good enough. You have good days, you have bad days, but like overall there's this sense of bondage. Like you say, it's a great word for it. And I think that's what happened. So that's what I lost, but that's also what I gained.
So I have a question from one of your fans who asked, in your book, you go into detail about a moment you were angry with God, and you're having a conversation with him after your divorce and leaving the cult. There's so much stigma in the Christian community about questioning God. What gave you the courage to talk about that so openly and with so much vulnerability?
Aw, thank you.
Did you have concern in the follow-up? Did you have concerns people would judge your level of Christianity, like your level of, you know what I mean when I say that, and I know what she means. Yeah. Like she said, that part really touched me in the book. Thank you. I'm so glad. That's great to hear. That was the turning point for me. It's the most powerful turning point in the whole story for me, was that turning point, because it was an acknowledgement that I had not been living an authentic life. And the most authentic I could possibly be was angry with God. It was like the biggest, most blasphemous. How could I scream curse words at God? Like that's never something that would have entered into my framework of reality. But it was the most raw, visceral. That was me on the floor of the Coliseum with blood and guts and mud all over me, just like, fuck you. How dare you? I was not writing this worried about someone's perspective of my Christianity. Good.
And my hope was that exactly that, what she just said, that it touched her and that it was meaningful. My hope is that people who need that would get that out of it and recognize that everybody deserves to have that. God is big enough to handle all of you, all of me. It's certainly not a God worth worshiping if it's not.
God's either everything or they're nothing.
Yes.
It's not like.
Yes, you just can't vending machine it. You can't. Yeah. Yeah. So I wasn't. No, I wasn't worried about it. I didn't feel. I don't care what Christians think of me. I don't. I mean, I'd like to say I don't care what anyone thinks of me, although I still put makeup on and got dressed today. So obviously, like,
sure.
There's a sense of like societal propriety and me caring that people care. And I mean, there's always elements of that. But at the end of the day, my faith is just not up for anybody else's judgment anymore.
And that's, I mean, the best gift as someone who has faith as well, and like has recovered that to similar, not cult, but like I had to regain what my own is. I value that so much because it's real now. And
yes,
I wish we had 3 more hours.
Me too. This is great.
I know. I don't want to end without asking you about solution. And, I think that needs to be my last question is like, what, if you were to, give a description to somebody about like, what made the difference for you and how did you heal?
I would go back to what we were just saying, that what made the difference for me was really admitting my loss of control and admitting that I didn't have all the answers and that I was going to make mistakes and that I was going to mess up, and admitting that I was angry with God and I was angry with people in my life, especially for Christians. We're taught so often that anger is bad And I wholeheartedly disagree with that now. I don't think justice can exist without anger, and love doesn't exist without anger, because if I love you and someone hurts you, I'm angry that you've been hurt. So there, I think connecting with my anger gave me a pathway forward. And so I would say to anybody out there who feels confined and constricted, there's probably a really deep layer of anger that would be helpful for you to acknowledge and start to let out in that you can find out how the healthy ways are to do that. There's lots of research. You can figure out that, or just go into a room and smash things. And
well, you mentioned
one of those axe throwing places or something. I don't know.
Speaking of therapeutic modalities, you mentioned Dr. Durvasula. And did I say her last name right?
Ramani Durvasula. Yeah.
Yes. As far as therapy is concerned, what routes have you gone to explore and tease? Yeah,
to start really doing the work. One thing I have not yet done is EMDR, which I would love to. And I started seeing somebody, but my ADHD gets in the way a lot, because there's all these forms, and like they want to do like 6 sessions of me filling out things. And I'm just like, just put me in front of the light and can we just get things done, please? Because I don't have time. So I'm probably in my own way there, but wouldn't be the first time. However, to PTSD, I did a ton of talk therapy for the first few years when I left the group, until I hit a point where I thought, I just did 10 years of fake talk therapy in this group. Now I'm doing real talk therapy, but I don't want to overanalyze. I just want to live from instinct, because that's the one thing I've been missing in my life, is living from instinct and trusting that there's a safety net of love to catch me when I fall on my face, which I will. And doing that kind of became its own therapy. And my hope was just like, God, don't let me do this for too long, to where this now becomes a new lifestyle of me just becoming a slave to my gut and my desires and whatever I want. Like I know this is a season and I want to approach it with maturity, but I do need to just be free, and just like whatever the immediate version of free means in my mind in that moment. I wanted to explore that until I figured out, free means it's not somebody throwing a ball into a field and everybody's trying to play a different game. Free is, here's the boundaries, here's the rules of the game, play, have fun, explore, but within the construct of the boundaries. I'm sorry if I'm going off topic.
No, you're not.
This is my brain. I have 10 tabs open all the time.
Joy, first of all, I'm following you along absolutely because of Justice ADD. Okay, good. But from an outsider's perspective, it's easier for me because this is your story, and I feel you just brought that full circle completely, so beautifully. And I would like to add, just to close out and wrap that up, that from a therapeutic perspective, EMDR is created to reprocess our reactions to trauma. Now, if you haven't gone and started to live life since the trauma was happening to you, you don't even know how to say, I'm struggling with this abnormal thing happening in life that shouldn't be happening that way when I do this. Right?
Oh, right. Yeah, and you don't even know how to feel it in your body.
Exactly.
You're not having the experiences.
So it makes all the sense in the world to me that your body and your mind and your emotions were like, I'm not ready for the EMDR, because you've been still
that's
taking
true,
your time figuring out what's working and what's not working, and identifying how your trauma is affecting your life. At that point, you can then sit down with a therapist and talk about, what is this affecting? How is this preventing me from living life to its fullest, authentically, and in all the ways that I'm supposed to?
Yes, because I have to live it enough to experience the pattern to where I can recognize that and then bring it into the office. And
we might have to do a part 2 after you do some EMDR.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Yes. So thank you so much for being here today. This has been such a joy.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your thoughtful questions and insight, and just having a really This is a really interesting dialogue. Thank you. I hope we get to talk more.
Thank you. Me too. Yeah. And just, I really do hope this has been a blessing to you and everyone, the audience. I always like to thank you. I believe that there's a divine, not to get woo-woo, but I believe there's a divine purpose that each of you are here, that there's meaning. You were supposed to be listening, watching, however you're connecting with us right now. Thank you for following whatever voice that was that said to turn this episode on.
Aww.
And share this with someone that might get something out of it. And I would encourage you to reflect as well. There's been a lot. I mean, I'm going to be reflecting on this, I know, for the rest of however long. So,
I feel like I learned a lot just from you. Thank you. That's great.
Ditto. Well, thanks again. And to the audience, I will remind you, how I always do, that it's never too late to start loving yourself. And you're always only one decision away from a completely different life.
This podcast is brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health. If you or a loved one are struggling with trauma, addiction, or mental health, we are ready to answer your questions and help you take that next step. Call our admission center at 888-648-4098 or visit us online at www.promises.com. Our team is ready and waiting to answer the call for help.